no, 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 no. Yeah, 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 no, 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 no. Melanated minds with the crown restored. Asiatic truth that we cannot ignore. Honor to noble Drew Ali, we rise. Nationality reclaimed, open your eyes. Hey, hey. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, the spark. No more strangers walking in the dark. Research first, let the facts ignite. Real Morse talk every week, truth over hype. This is knowledge, this is heritage, this is consciousness. Welcome to Real Morse Talk with your hostess, Prime Minister Durriyyah Bey. Hey. Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Shadow hour. 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 You are now tuned into Real Morse Talk. Melanated glow, crown back on the throne. Asiatic spirit, yes, we finally home. Honor noble Drew Ali, we proclaim. Nationality restored, we reclaim the name. Yeah, yeah. Love, truth, peace, let us spark that fire.
Freedom, justice,
Lifting hearts higher.
no more strangers.
We know our part.
Real Morse Talk,
Truth from the heart.
Real Morse Talk,
Truth from the heart.
Real Morse Talk.
That's right.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
That's it. Rise up. Rise up. Rise up. That's it. Rise up.
This is heritage.
That's it. Rise up.
This is consciousness.
That's it. Rise up.
That's your heritage.
That's it. Rise up.
Never haven't been.
That's it. Rise up. This is heritage. This is consciousness with your hostess, Prime Minister Durriyyah Bey.
All right. Welcome to episode 19 of Real Morse Talk. This is Shadow Hour, and I am your hostess, Prime Minister National Grand Sheikh Durriyyah Bey. And we are back. We're back, and we're on the second part of the rights of the child. So, rights of the child, part two. I always first want to rise and give praises to the Creator, whom I choose to call Allah, for allowing me to wake up this rising in my right frame of mind with my good common sense, life, health, and consciousness, with the ability to stay on this road, Islamic road, because you know what? Sometimes it's rough and sometimes it's smooth, Morris. So I just want to give much honor and praises to Allah for allowing me to be here. I want to give a special honor to all of the people who came out tonight on this Real Morris Talk podcast and listen to the sound of my voice, because you could be doing something else. So some of you are truly interested in what I have to say. So I want to thank you all for that. Again, we're on the episode Shadow Hour, Real Morris Talk, and we are on part two of the rights of the child. And so I'm going to go over some of the things that we're going to be covering tonight with the rights of the child. You know, it's really important. I know a lot of people do not want to hear when you're talking about the rights of the child. If you're not just talking about the Declaration of the Rights of the Child or the Human Rights of the Child or the UN Declaration of Human Rights, we know that this has been done over and over and over again. But there's certain rights that our children have from the time of conception, when we decide to become parents, or when we know that the seed has been planted and the soil is fertile and it grows. So you're on Shadow Hour. All right. So I want to start off with a few things on Real Morris Talk today. And I want you all to engage and join in with me. If you have a question or concern or comment that you want to add to this episode, please use our chat to do so. Our chat is open. And I remember one more was very thoughtful. He said, Prime Minister, you can just go ahead and turn off the comments chat. And I was like, why would I do that? This is Real Morris Talk. We're here to talk. Everyone has an opinion and a right to one. But remember that opinion is no proof of the truth. All right. So you have the right to your opinion, but it's no proof of truth. It's just an opinion. All right. We deal with facts here at Real Morris Talk. And that's what we like to deal with, is facts. But of course, from time to time, when I'm stating facts, I still give my opinion or something of a thought, because just because something is a fact does not mean I agree with it 100%. That's not what facts are for. Facts are for information that you can go and study and research on things that you are interested in, or things that may concern you, your lineage, your history, your family, your all the people that surround you, your group, your temple, your whatever part or participation you have. Is for you to use those facts. Because listen, in today's society, we need truth, because we're living in an information age where people just lie, and say it's the truth. All right. So we have to be very conscious of that. All right. So what I want to do is go here. So I have to start off with a question, and we left off at several points of the prior week. So I want to start off with a question. Should the government and agency decide on how a child is raised? Okay. Who should have the greatest influence over a child's future? The parent, the school, the government, or social media? Okay. Tonight, we continue one of the most important discussions we have ever had on Real Morris Talk, the rights of the child, part two. I think this is one of the most important discussions that we have had or could ever have on Real Morris Talk, because we don't even realize as parents we're violating our children's rights. We have governmental agencies that's violating our children's rights. But the biggest way we violate our children's rights is we send them to institutions of learning where their best interest is not there. So we're going to continue to talk about these things on Real Morris Talk, and you are more than welcome to put comments in the chat, and I will engage you. All right, let's go. So I want to talk about the child's first teacher. And I've been saying this for years and years. And I remember one brother on Facebook, I think it was, he created what I said, who is the child's first teacher? And the child's first teacher is the mother. That is the very first teacher of the child. And he drew this beautiful Asiatic imagery with a child in the mother's womb, because when people hear things that you say, they may engage in what you say and they may not say anything, but they may get inspired by it. And so the picture is beautiful. In my book, Who Are the Moors, in the information booklet, I have that in the inside cover. It's so beautiful. I thought he did I don't know who the artist is. He didn't label, or maybe labeled inside of the actual picture, but it's just a beautiful sight to see. All right. So the very first teacher of the child is you, the parent, but mainly the mother, because we're carrying that child in our womb. But before, not only the first teacher, but the only God that the child knows is mother. That's it. Before they lie to, that's your God. That's the one when you're in the womb and you're being created in that womb and going in your stages of creation in that womb, and we talk about that in creation of life, the creation and fall of man. When you're going through that manifestation stage in your mother's womb, that is your mother is nurture. Everything she takes in, stress, food, thoughts, all that she's taking in is going into the child. So we have to think about that from the time of conception. We have to think about that we have to start caring for ourselves, and people around you have to start caring about who you are and what's going on inside your womb, because everything that's surrounding you, the child is privy to that. And so that's why a lot of times when children are in stress, when we stress, I remember I had a high stress pregnancy and they kept telling me I was going to lose my son if I did not relax and calm down. I was in a stressful situation and those type things happen. And so you have to start thinking about that. I remember they said, oh, we cannot feel the child's heartbeat any longer. So I had to go through all this testing, and finally they sent in a specialist who found my son's heartbeat. And that's just a story for that time. But she found his heartbeat, and it was the most beautiful sound to me, because I thought, oh, was talking about this therapeutic abortion I was going to have because of the stress I was under, and my child was under so much stress. And, I was really like, I was at odds with myself, because I can't allow myself to be under this. But sometimes life circumstances, you try what you can do when you're hanging in there by yourself, but sometimes life circumstances cause you to not be able to relieve that stress on your own. And that's why we need a community. I want us to get back to the community that we need to have. When one becomes pregnant with a child, they should never be by themselves. The mother should not have to carry that whole 9 months and 10 lunar months alone carrying that child. But that's what tends to happen. Okay, that's what tends to happen. And so we have to start setting ourselves in a society. The prophet gives us social duties. We have to start setting ourselves in a society when a mother in our nation gets pregnant, that we all know about it and we're told about it, and then we start preparing for her. We start preparing the things that she needs for her comfort, her life, the things she needs to do, the literature she needs to read. We have to start preparing for the child coming into this world. And I'm telling you, if we start doing the things we did ancient times, we'll have a much better turnout than we're having right now with our children. We'll have a much better turnout. All right. So I wanted to go over, a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And a prophet, Noble Drew used to say that all the time to the Moors. A nation can rise no higher than its woman. So I want to break it down what that means, because remember, mother is the one who is cultivating that seed and raising that seed. So let's go into a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And this means that the strength, character, intelligence, stability, and future of a nation are closely connected to the condition of its woman. And think about that, because on the front of the 101 questions, the prophet is lifting a woman up And as he has her lifted up, you see the 9 drops of water coming from her body. And a lot of people say, oh, that's the water from when the prophet got her out of the murky ethers. But he didn't say it came out of the water. He said the murky ethers of the flesh. So those are representing her teardrops. So the 9 teardrops of mother from fallen humanity. And the prophet had to come back and lift her up and place her on a solid rock of foundation. He has 1 foot on the solid rock and 1 foot still in the cares of the world, showing us that this is what he had to do to bring her up and lift her up. So he's showing us that she was so low that he had to pick her up and hold her and embrace her in his arms. So this is to make the nation rise back, because if a nation can rise no higher than its woman was down in the murky ethers, and no one was trying to bring her back out of that condition. The prophet Noble Durriyyah said, we cannot let mother stay there, because he knew the importance of mother. He had a mother. He knows what mother represents the nation. And so he picked her up and put her back right on a solid rock. So this particular statement that I'm saying connects to the emphasis that women play a central role in society, raising the children, teaching values, preserving culture, building families, educating and eruditing future generations, maintaining communities. The ideal is that women are educated, respected, protected, morally grounded, and economically empowered. Because we make sure no matter what that our family eats, that our bills get paid, right? Sometimes we struggle to get that done, but we make sure that it happens, right? We try to, and then when it all else fails, if we can't do it and all else fails, we try to find a sense of security for our children. So that's the importance of mother. And I'm saying this because I want a lot of brothers, I hear them say, oh, I love mother, and they claim they lifted mother up and all of that, and then they be tearing her down. I'm gonna share something with you all. On our online schooling, we have days I talk about every last Thursday about Community Day. Want to share this one particular Community Day. It was a brother that was saying horrible things to his wife. And it was overheard. I'm not sure if it was Community Day. It might have been regular classroom. Anyway, he was blasting her out, calling her all kinds of bitchs and all that. And everybody said, well, what happened that he had to do that? I don't know what happened, because I was not there. What we did is overheard. But what happened is my daughter's children heard it. And they ran and got their mother. And my daughter was standing there, and she started listening to it. And she was like, Mother, they're not even unmuted. So then she reached out to me so that I could get on and listen to it. And he was going on saying I couldn't believe the things that were coming out of his mouth. But not only that, his children, his sons, were listening to it too. And you should have saw the horror on their faces, where their father was acting in this particular manner. And I made sure what I was hearing, and then I kicked them off the line so that the children or no one else would be subject to that abuse. Now, this brother will look in the face and talk about mother and woman and all that, but he was tearing her up something terrible. And I want to say this, this is what we're talking about, the rights of the child. Inside of your own home, you were disrespecting your wife, their mother, in front of those children. The child should always be protected from harm. And so now that's scarred in their brain. And I don't know if this is something that goes on normally in that household, but the bottom line is I wouldn't say it was anything new, right? That's what was happening. And this woman was being destroyed, and everyone got to hear it. And so this is what I'm saying about respecting and taking care of mother. Now, we're going to have some disagreements. Listen, mother and father are going to disagree from time to time about different circumstances. But this is what the prophet said about this. He said, if a woman and a man have a disagreement, he said, do not go to bed angry. He said, but they need to take it into a room away from the children, where they can iron things out, or even wait for the children to go to bed at night to get this situated, but never go to bed angry with each other, and never do this in front of your children. Now, remember, he's a prophet. He's prophetic. He already knows what's going to happen in future generations, because those children will grow up and start abusing their mother and talking. I've seen it, talking crazy to their mother, abusing their sisters or whatever, abusing other women because of what they saw. And you would think psychologically, if a child saw abuse, that would be something that they do not want to portray on someone else. But that doesn't happen like that for whatever reason. A lot of the children who have been abused grow up to be abusers. And so the child has a right to be protected against these type of things. So that's what I'm saying. We're talking about the rights of the child. A lot of times parents don't realize that you as a parent are abusing your child's rights as a parent. And we have to protect our children from harm. I've heard parents call their children all kinds of names online when we're online, all kinds of names, same situation. The line is on. I think this child probably left it unmuted for a reason, because he wanted us to hear his mother talking to him like that. And so what I'm saying is we have a lot of issues in our society, in our community, but we can fight that by seeking help from one another, by coming together as a community. And listen, I'm going to share something I was telling my son. We had to pick up the Grand Sheik Tashari Bey. And I was telling my son that I remember something that Elisha O'Neill, one of my mentors, said to me when I was devastated by some of the actions of the people in the temple. Be mindful. I was, visiting my family's temple and things like that with my uncle, and having Sunday school and things like that with him and all of that. So I never really got to see how other people actually act. And so when I saw this, I was kind of terrified at the actions of the people. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, why are people acting like that? And he sat down and said to me this. He said, listen, Mobile. He said, these are the same people from the outside world out there. From the people from the outside that's all messed up in the head, that's coming into the temples, striving to live a better life. You heard me say the word striving to live a better life, which means that those people are from the outside coming in. So don't put anybody on a pedestal or think that they're better from anyone on the outside, but this is where they're supposed to learn how to behave better and do better. And once he gave me those jewels, I saw things from a different point of view, and I was able to be more accepting of the things that were going on, and I was able to tolerate it, and I was able to deal with circumstances. And I tell you, that sticks with me to today, right? So the rights of the child, and see, I'm someone else's child too. And he was, generous enough to come and tell me, because I was so devastated at some of the things I saw, some of the situations I got into with fights and things like that in the temple. And I didn't understand like none of this, like what's going on here? I could stay out there in the Negro world with that mess, or going to that church with all that gossiping and carrying on and all that fake crying of some Jesus that don't even exist. I could have did all that. But instead, I decided to stay there and fight it out amongst my own people, because I know that we have been conditioned and we need to change. And the prophet said, when conditions change, things disappear. So I was looking for things to get better as I traveled through the temple, so things could get better where I can get along with my sisters and brothers in the temple and listen to the wonderful words of the prophet. But not only that, follow out the instructions of the prophet, because you can sit there and listen all day, but words without, what they say in that Christian society, words without works is dead. It's the truth. If you have a bunch of words, but you're not putting them into action, they're just words and nothing more. So I wanted to share some of that all with you, and the rights of the child. All right. So in the context of today, I want to go over and say, when we say a nation can rise no higher than its woman, we are not saying women are more important in society than the man is. That's not what we're saying. We're saying she has a very vital role to play, because some men get so angry and upset, you're not more better than me because woman or whatever. They don't even want to respect the fact that all that women do. And I think I shared that information on the prior broadcast when that brother Medea called me. Well, I don't know if I tell you, he called me a Jezebel. First of all, I once he said that, I figured that he didn't even know the true story of Jezebel. So once he said that, I knew that he was illiterate to the true story of Jezebel when he called me that, because I was not dishonored to be called Jezebel. But when he told me to be quiet and shut up, he said, shut up. He said, because women are supposed to be barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen, cooking food and having babies. So I wasn't insulted by that. I was like, you're right, brother. I told him I don't mind being barefoot. I don't mind being pregnant. I don't mind being in the kitchen cooking, and I don't mind having babies because I'm bringing life into the world. But I said to him, but you, my brother, can do none of that. I can do all of that, still raise a nation, still fight the law, and still travel to do what I need to do. So I'm not restricted by the limitations that you as a man would want to put on me, because that's colonialism. That's that European psychology that you're spitting out. And we try to mix that into our Islamic principles. We try to mix those colonialism into more science, into more culture and heritage. And you cannot mix colonialism with that. Colonialism is something that's for the Europeans. It was designed for them, for them. We do not need to be trying to be a colonial occupier. They're the occupiers, and we're the ones under the impression of them, occupiers. And so we're trying to get out of that oppression of those occupiers. And the way that we do that is making sure we're not violating our rights, our children's rights, and raising our children in a society that they can be very proud of. Because right now, most of our children are not very prideful of who we are. Because one of the things is when they leave here to school, and this is what we talk about education here, we don't have anywhere else for them to go. And I talk about that all the time. Now, we started the Morse Online College University. And so, and one of the things that Grand Sheik was right about, he said, Prime Minister, let's not push that. Let's try to get the school off the ground first. Let's try to get the school up and stable and running, and getting the students up and graduating at a good rate. And then we'll go ahead. You got all your paperwork. You've done all your work. You got all your curriculum together. You built it all for the college. And then you can go ahead and set up the college. But let's try to get these doors open here and try to maintain it. And so, and he was right about that, because a lot of things have transpired. So he was right about, giving me that information to do that. He was right, because a lot of things have transpired to the point where now I'm so glad that he told me to do that. I'm really glad he told me to just halt that. We can open up at any time, any day of the week, we can open up like that, because we have everything set to go. But we need to have the students and we need the instructors. All right. So, but anyway, so let me go back to, so rather we are recognizing that the health of a nation depends upon the cooperation of both man and woman. Women are often the first educators and erudites of the children. This preserves culture and nurtures of future leaders. Therefore, the treatment, education, protection, and empowerment of women directly affect the future of the nation itself, because we are the ones that bring nations forth. We're the ones that cultivate that seed and carry it all the way to full term. That is why it is our birthday every time the child is born, and it's their day of birth, or their day they were born, or as a lot of Moors like to say too, their solar return, coming around the earth again and back. That's what it means about solar return. All right. All right. So, so this helps us understand the importance of mother and woman in society. And in here at Real Much Talk, we talk real, we keep it real, because we want you to understand what we're talking about. We don't want to just be spitting stuff out to you and you have no comprehension of what we're talking about. That's not what we do on Real Much Talk here. And listen, you may not always agree on everything. You can agree to disagree, and whatever. Some of you all put thumbs up that you like this, podcast. Some of you put thumbs down, whatever your opinion is. What I love about opinions, they're no proof of the truth. They're just an opinion, and everyone has the right to it. Okay. All right. So a child's first environment is usually the home, so once the child is born, if the child is born in a hospital, they come home, and that's their first known environment is home. And that place of home should be warm and loving for the child. It should be a place of peace and contentment, not confusion. All right, a mother's well-being affects the child's well-being. So if mother is stressed when she had the child, then she's stressed, before she had the child, and she's stressed after the child is born, and then she's stressed again. That contention moves right over to the child. The child feels all of that. Even when the mother's nursing from her breast, the child is getting those nutrition. All of that affects your mental health. It affects your physical health. And then your child is feeding from that, can feel the tension. And they may latch on harder to the breast because they can feel that the tension's there, and they feel tense and they need to relax. So we want to give our children a warm, relaxing environment. All right, when we have strong families, we have strong connections, and that makes and creates a stronger nation. So I always share that the sister from the Ivory Coast, I just stay with me. Some things stay with you. When she told me right out, she wanted me to have a child with her son, and she had no problem with it, telling me how things would be, letting me be assured that I would never be by myself. Never be by myself with the raising of the children. That I would never have to worry. That's how we should be doing in our Moorish community, where we never have to worry. Mothers should not worry when how the child going to eat, who can help out. Am I going to get enough rest? We have to start setting up our communities that way, where mother does not have to worry. All she has to do is make sure she's carrying that child a healthy full term, giving her the herbs and vitamins that we normally give to mothers, because I treat a lot of, mothers before they have their children. I don't know how many children I've delivered, just those things. So we need to make sure that comfort environment, that relaxing environment is there. And then we can have healthy children being born. Because remember, I talked about the soulless child, and I talked about how Universal Quran talks about the soulless child and what that comes from. And since the children are coming from an environment where there's no love in the household most of the time, it's just that people are just laying down having sex for whatever pleasure they think they're getting. And then now a child is created and no one wants to be there to produce the child. And then it becomes a strenuous relationship between the father and the mother. Most of the time, mother is alone raising that child in her mother's house. Most of the time, especially if it's your first child. So we want to change that condition. If a nation's future rests in the children, and the children are largely shaped by the woman, who nurtures them, and what responsibility does society have towards mothers and families? All right, and so these are questions that I have, and you all can answer in the chat, but I like to bring these questions because I want to hear food for thought. Who teaches values first? And I have the answer, but I'd like for you all to, before I answer those, I'd like to engage my audience. What happens when parents surrender education entirely to the institution? Why do children learn more from examples than words? And who has the greatest influence over our children today? Would you say that it's the parents, the schools, the internet, or social media? And listen, I would love for you all to engage in it. But if you all do not decide to engage in it, that's all right too. I would just like you all to do that. And so I'm going to go to and I cover these things in my book, The Rights of the Child, as I did introduce to you all earlier the past episode. I asked you all to please spend $10 and get this book and donate to our school, right? Just $10. And I can't, all the views we have not had one book order. More, I don't know why we don't support, but we don't have one book order. So we need to start supporting. This is The Rights of the Child. All right, $10. Please support. All right. So the first question I said is, who teaches values first to the child? So we know that that's mother, right? But I'm just engaging the audience to see if you have a second thought, because mother has to teach the values. And listen, it doesn't start when the child is born. It starts while she's nurturing that seed the full term. She's teaching the child about values then, because that child hears you. Everything that's going on, that child's inside of a sack. And everything that's going on, everything you feel, everything you eat, every thought, everything is transferred right to that child. So that child knows what's going on. They may not comprehend yet, but they know what's going on. Okay. What happens when parents surrender education entirely to the institution? Well, then that's when you get a bunch of children that you don't even know who they are. A bunch of children being born, and you're trying to figure out, who is this child? Because they all they know, and you'll hear a child, my teacher said, my teacher said, my teacher said, my teacher said, the principal said, the guidance counselor said, my friend said, but you do not hear what mother and father have said. You don't hear that. Why do children learn more from example than words? Because words a lot of times go in one ear and go out the other. Not that they're not food for thought, because we know they are. They can hurt tremendously. They can carry so much weight. But if you show the child, so if I say to the child, I'm teaching my child how to eat, and I say, start eating that oatmeal. And the child like, well, how do I start? You pick up the spoon and you show the child how to eat that oatmeal. And then you may have to do it several times until they get it. But they will get it. That's an example. Go wash your face and hands. I could tell you to go wash your face and hands, but if you've never seen hands and face washed, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So by example, I go upstairs and get a white cloth and I wash my face, right? And my hands. Now, should you wash your hands before you touch your face? Absolutely. Wash your hands, get that white cloth, and wash your face, right? You have to teach the child how to do those things. And so examples is what works. So you show the child how to sit at a table properly. My father was big on that when we were coming up. Oh my goodness. I never forget him slapping my brother right up under the table one time, because my father was really big on how you sat, table etiquette and how you ate. And I never forget, I made a big pot of vegetable stew, and I had made some pasta on the side of the stew. And my father just loved pasta and stew. And my brother, he would like to mix it together too. And I like mixing mine, but my father, for some reason, like his pasta separate. So anyway, that's why I wouldn't mix it in the pot. But my brother was sitting there one time slouching over, knowing that my father was irritated. He told him 3 times to sit up. And then he starts slurping the stew. Woo! I didn't even see it. My father hit him so fast. I didn't see it. And the thing was, but he knew better. See, that's the thing. Discipline. When you know better, you do better. And I'm just going to purposely be honoring, right? Disrespectful, knowing that that's not how we sit at the table. There's a consequence for that. I was talking to a parent about that today, that children today don't feel a consequence. We'll tell them, oh, I'm going to, don't do it again. Don't do it again. I'm going to take away this. I'm going to take away that, But they laugh and think, she just talking. She ain't going to do nothing. I'm going to still play my game. I'm still going to watch TV. I'm still going to do whatever. And there's no consequence. So they do not take you seriously for that. All right. So by example, you have to show children the good and the not so good. There's a consequence. If you do something that's wrong, there's a consequence for that. And they call it corporal punishment. It's not corporal punishment when you make sure your child can feel a little sting from what they're doing wrong, especially if you've already taught them and showed them and they do something contrary to what you told them or showed them, then there's a consequence for that. All right. Okay, so I want to finish up this first place, and then I'm going to go to the comments. All right, so what happens? Okay, so All right. So who do you think is today's greatest influence over the child? Social media is the greatest influence. And I was talking to a parent about that. Her son literally lied and told her that school has been getting out early because I guess a lot of schools may have half days, but we don't. We have our own entity, our own school. We do things totally different than the public school system. We don't follow no public school curriculum or no public school way of what they're doing. And so he also will haven't been coming to classes, and it's posted that in a telegram, all right, we have a telegram for our school, and the teacher posted it that the child hasn't been to class. The parents saw it and called me as I was getting ready for this episode of Real Morris Talk. And we show how children are so creative with doing things and just lie or whatever to get done, to get on that social media, play those games or do whatever they want to do. They will lie in their parents' face. They will lie in your face. And I've had them literally try to make me out of a liar, like literally try to challenge me and tell me, like he told his mother he was in detention on Wednesday. I was online traveling on Wednesday, but I was still there online and he did not show up. These are the things that we're dealing with our children. And as parents, and I told the mother, listen, I hear what you're saying, but if you don't take all those devices away from him and don't give him back to the end of the school year, then what else can we say? Because you still fuss with them, oh, you can't do this and that, and then they know they can go right back in their room and play it or whatever. So social media, all of this gaming, all this stuff has a hold of our children, which is causing addictive behavior. And as a parent, you are violating your child's rights because your child has the right to an education and learning. And because you will not take the social media aspect away from them, you're harming your child. And so therefore your child's not getting what they need. The rights of the child. All right. All right. I'm going to take a stop there for a moment and see what I have in the chat. So far it says at Miss Jazzy 1960. The government has the initial influence over our children through the schools that they control. And to further ensure that our children are kept docile, they create social media for outside school. You know what's going on. I'm so glad, Mobile, you know what's going on. You are definitely know what's going on. Instead of mother and father. And then God is, let me see, God, I gotta put my glasses on. Someone Goddess says, peace. I would love to have a copy of the book. All right, well, you can go to circle7publishing.com, circle7publishing.com, and purchase a copy of the book. It's only $10. We did the rights of the child, and we did the rights of the child, and then we did the one about the child going to school. What the public school system does to our children. And me and Ty did that together, trusting that we could raise funds for the school. But like I had told Taj, we may have had one or two orders even from that book that we created together to try to influence. So we also have the book Taj and I wrote, The Origins and Pearls of Modern Education and Mandatory Schooling, that book as well, to let parents know that their children should not be in the public school system. Should not. All right. And it's, as a community, we have to do things together and stop trying to do things separately. And that's why we don't have the pull and power that we need, because we keep dividing ourselves into factions, and then we're doing that, and then we're not getting any connective vibrational energy because we're moving in different directions, because everybody wants to be the chief. No one wants to be the Indian. Everybody wants to be seen and be in charge, and they don't want to be up under anyone else. So therefore this is where we keep having the confusion at. And they don't want to be underneath a woman. For whatever reason, our men have a problem with that, and some of our women do too. So we have to get away from those things. All right. You're on Real Morse Talk Shadow Hour. Oh, that water is just so good. Nothing like water. Nothing like water. All right. So, did you know that historical records that were used in slave terms is the really started being the record of the birth record? And I talked about that in the prior segment. And someone asked me to expound on it, so I added back into this segment. So, what I'm talking about, for those who may not have watched the whole first episode, so let me just go over it again for you, because someone did email me and ask me to, can I bring it back this episode, because they said they watched the full episode, but they still didn't understand what I was talking about. So what I was talking about was that what happened is they started at, because we were considered property, they had to start having accountability for property. Because before this, people was having as many slaves as they wanted to, much property as they wanted to. They wasn't paying any taxes on property, etc. So they made lots of fiat without recording it. So when the government wanted you to record your property, then they had to start keeping a birth record. So that's where the original birth record started coming from them. But before that, we had our own birth records. As I was saying, my uncle said that we used to keep the birth records in Qurans and things like this long historically. Like they had some really, really old books where my uncles and them had passed down, where we had birth records from family members that were born. And so what they started doing is in Piscine Records, they started creating and I used to have one. Next time when I come on, I'll show you how it's a birth records are inside. Birth records are inside of the booklet. They're in there. And then you would write the name of the child, when the child was born, etc., all in that birth record. So that's where the birth records would be. And so what they took is our thought and put it on paper to start recording their slaves. Like say if I was Imani, and I'm under I'm lost. I don't know who I am. I'm a stranger in my own land, and I'm having children. And my husband is Isaiah, and we're having children. And when we have the children, every time that I would have a child, they would need to record that on record. That I'm the mother, Isaiah is the father. Now, a lot of times, if the father wasn't there, they didn't even bother to record the father at all. But they would record the mother and the child, because we know mother's maternal. So they would record the mother and the child, and sometimes not the father. So that's what they would record, and they would keep a record of all the births. And up until now, the men, up until I think for us it was 21 and the men was 25 or something like that, because the 18 stuff wasn't even accountable back then. But they would keep you at a certain age, and then once you were considered an adult slave, a lot of times you were moved over to another plantation. So if a plantation who kept adult slaves had different work for adult slaves, they would do that. Or if you had the fiat and had saved up and your family saved up, you could buy your freedom. Every time I think about that, that just goes right through me. Buy my freedom. Freedom is not something you can't be bought, but we know that that's what had to happen. They had to buy their freedom to get papers for freedom. And a lot of times they were murdered after the fiat was gotten, and they let them get too far away from the house, and then they would murder them. The same so-called plantation owner that set you free, they would murder the slave after they got so far from home, either alert to other people that they were on the road, and they would be lynched and murdered and all of those things. So they never intended to have you free or let you go. So that's what would happen. So trust me, I did clarify that for you, that that's what the birth records were. And you can still today create your own birth record. But what we say here as a nation, we have birth records here. And so if you get the information from when your child was born, etc., we create a birth registry right here. We have the birth registry here and the birth certificate, because your child has that right. So if your child needs a certificate of birth, say if they're trying to get a job or something like that, it doesn't have to be from this government. Their government there, you can get a birth certificate right here. We'll have proof of the child's birth is sealed and everything. And it's under the Morse government. Now, you may have to fight a little bit, and we teach you how to fight with that or whatever, but you do have a certificate proving that you were born. And they say it has to have a raised seal. We raise the seal, right? So we're doing everything in the right way. It's just not under their government, that has to happen. And then some people want to have a birth certificate because of things that they want to do. You have to understand what the birth certificate is and what it's all about, and what this birth certificate actually, what purpose it serves. Because, like I said, back in the day, we did it to keep account of our children who were being born. We needed to know when we had children how many we had. Sometimes we had 7, 8, 9, 10 children at a time. And, if they were twins, you wanted to know, the difference in the twins so they were not confused, etc. So we did that. The Europeans took our thought and started creating their own registry for birth, because when they decided that they need to get rid of a slave or get a count of their slaves, then they created that registry. And then, of course, we know that, that over in, considered in New England territory is where they started putting the birth certificate they created on an auction block and, selling your birthrights and etc. So, and we talk about that too in the story of Pocahontas. That's another book about all of that in there. So, okay. So now, when I wanted to do so, I want you to take a picture and I want you to kind of think in your mind. Can you imagine yourself being born back in that era time in slavery, being born without the freedom to move, without someone saying you could move, the freedom to think without someone telling you could think, not being able to read or write? And our children, I think, take, it for granted because they've never experienced not being able to read or write. So they take it for granted. They don't really want to learn how to read or write. But we needed to learn how to read or write so we would be able to know what our rights and stand up for ourselves. Can you imagine yourself being back in that area of time? Just take a moment to think about that, where you had no rights. Every move you made, every step you took, someone had to approve you going to the bathroom. Someone had to approve you falling in love and marrying who you desired to marry. Someone had to approve of the meals you ate and the way you thought. Like, can you imagine? I always tell people on a serious note, if I was back during those times, I died so quickly that it's probably not even on the record, that they killed me off very quickly. Because with my spirit that I have, spirit, man, doesn't change. Spirit doesn't change. And the spirit that I have now is still always the spirit I've had. So I can't even imagine me in that situation. Someone telling me what to think and do or whatever. I can't go to the bathroom. I cannot cook. I cannot do this or that. I have to have the scraps off of your table to eat. I eat when you tell me to eat. I have to nurse your child. I have to take my breast designed for my children. And my children have to be hungry because I have to take the milk from my breast and feed it to your child, to your children. Can you imagine? And the thing is that they thought we were such horrible people, yet our breast milk was good enough to feed their children. You have to think about the things in the mind and just take a time, travel back and journey in your mind. Could you think, can you imagine yourself? Close your eyes for a moment. Can you imagine yourself being back during that time when someone's whipping you and beating you and just for having a thought, or just because they didn't like the way you looked or what you said back? Can you imagine? If you can imagine and had that thought process, type something in the chat. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness. So for a child, mother being well knowledgeable and well respected and accepted is really big in the community for a child, because if they see how others treat their parent, then they see the respect and all that from the parent, and so it makes them want to grow up with having some respect, and grow up with being honorable and respectful. if the parent is that way as well. Also, it builds strong communication. So we can communicate, we can talk to one another. Have you ever met someone that you can just talk to and feel so comfortable with? That is how we should be with our children. Comfortable enough that we can talk to them and be with them and talk to them. That's the things that we need, with our children. All right. So it's really important that we do these things for our children. It's so important. And mother is the one that has to be an example of that. I'm not saying that father doesn't, but mother is the one the child mostly looks up to. Unless you have the ones that are father's little girls where the father is everything to them. All right, everything to them. All right. All right, so we're going to go to the chat really quickly and see what people says. All right, and see what the people, what the people have to say in the chat. And just excuse me for one moment. Just for one moment, I have to answer a question. All right, I do apologize. I had to take care of something that was really, really important. So I do apologize. I normally don't do that, but this couldn't be helped. All right, so let's go back to the chat. It says this piece, I would, okay, no. So it says, God is one. I said, Miss Jazzy 1960, I am with you, Prime Minister. They would have killed me as soon as I learned the word no. I know that's right. So, because the thing is that some of us are just very strong willed, and those are the ones of us they did not want, I'm sure. Some of us are very, very strong willed. I do apologize. The Grand Sheik is here and he's doing some things, and so he's doing some things, and he needed to ask me some things. So I do apologize. I had to step away for just a moment, but I try really not to never let that happen. I do apologize for that. All right. All right. So I looked in the chat to see if there was anything else that no one else had anything that they wanted to say at this particular time. Okay. So, all right. So I do want to say, so I wanted to go over that, and I wanted you all to imagine yourself. Could you imagine? Listen, I try to imagine myself in that position, and I just can't even imagine myself in that position at all because of who I am, character-wise. So, all right, all right. So imagine being born and having someone writing your name in a ledger, not because they care for you, but because they're tracking you as property. And so that was under my little few minutes of imagining. Can you imagine that? Like, they not registering you or anything because they care about you or your name and legacy or anything like that. They register you as a piece of property that they have, like they doing an audit, and that's the only reason why that you're there. All right. All right, so now we're talking about a modern childhood under pressure. So we're talking about children today under lots of peer pressure. So let's talk about that for a moment. So our children are under a lot of pressure in the school, and sometimes as parents we do not help. I know, for instance, like parents that say, "Well, I want to take my child out, and not because they online school, and I want to put them back into the public school system now." And this is an awful time to put your children in the public school system, but you're the parent. You have the right to do this. Your right to You have the right to whatever education you seem fit for your child. You have that right. But when you're putting your children into these institutions, and I always talk about how you send them in, they have breakfast in school, they have lunch in school. Then they come home, you feed them dinner, give them a bath, and put them to bed. And the cycle goes on and on the next day. Well, these children are under a lot of peer pressure because they have friends that they're hanging out with. And so now they want to do what their friends do. So if the child is all day on social media, then that's what the child is doing with their friend. If they're into boys, then the friend's into boys. If the boys are into girls, then they're into girls. They're mimicking their friends. And this is the thing. And I'll give you an example. We were out in a restaurant. I'm trying to think. I would think it was called the Olive Tree. Not the Olive Garden, but the Olive Tree. But anyway, it was a bunch of children together. And they use these pronouns. They don't use whatever, them and though. This is stuff, ridiculous stuff that Europeans and then put in our children's head, and they learn this. But you couldn't tell all these children together. You couldn't tell who was the boy and who was the girl. They were a whole group of them together. I would be horrified as a parent. You couldn't tell who was who. They were all together, all dressed alike and everything. And you couldn't tell who was who. And this whole group of people, I mean, if you stared hard enough, I mean, sure you can, your eyes don't deceive you, but I'm just saying this is what happens with peer pressure. Your children are in a school or environment now where people don't want to be called by the gender that they were born under. So they make up these new things, and then society accepts it. I think I was talking about how Dr. Pimple Popper, how I saw that on that particular show. It was a woman who is changing herself to be dressed like a man, looking like a man and everything. And you could barely tell it was a woman. He's small statured or whatever, but dressing like a man. And the mother said, "My son, and this is my beautiful son." And you know that when you gave birth to him, you didn't give birth to no son. You gave birth to a girl. And because in their mind they changed, or they changed their gender, try to change the outside genitalia, don't make them man or woman, because she's still a woman who can still have children. If she got pregnant, she has a womb. So these are the outside influences that are connected to our children. And as parents, we are not keeping it real with our children and telling our children the real of these things. Letting your child pretend there's something that's not. This is not fairy tale. You start telling them about the tooth fairy, they grow up thinking about the tooth fairy. You tell them there's a Santa Claus, they grow up to Santa Claus until they get old enough to realize as a parent, you lied to them. So when they realize you lied to them, then they start lying to you. And this continuously goes on and on and on with the lies. So we have to be very honest with our children and what's going on in these societies, and don't make your child. The prophets have watched the bent of their inclination, set them right in their youth, and let no evil habits gain strength with their years. We have to let our children know who you are. You were born a boy. You a boy. You, no matter what you think you feel like in the inside, you can't feel like a girl because you don't know what a girl feels like. Girls don't even know what they feel like as girls until they start growing up. So you can't say you always felt like a girl inside, because that's not true. So these type of things that we're allowing society to do to our children, we have to stop that. Changing, giving them hormone shots and all those things without the parents' permission. Creating Frankensteins. We have to stop that narrative. We have to teach our children. The children have the right. And as a parent, it is your responsibility to protect your child. not lie to them and put them in fantasy and fiction. Because the reality is you are who you were born, regardless of whether you like it. That's like me saying I'm melanated. I'm truly melanated. And I want to say, well, I feel like a hybrid European. And I start bleaching my skin and get my hair all weaved up with all this straight hair in my head, and I'm throwing it around. And people telling me, well, you were born, with melanin in your skin, you born Asiatic. And I'm saying, but inside, I feel like a European. So that's who I am. I feel like one. That's who I am. And everybody looking at you and can see with your eyeballs that you're not, but yet you say that's what you feel inside. And people want to say, oh, that's not the same thing. Yes, it's exactly the same thing. It's false. It's a false sense of identity of who you are. You are who you were born. And nobody can change your decent nature. So it's false and fake. Yet society wants us to accept that. What I see in front of my eyeballs. Even AI will try to argue with this, a psychological thing. Psychological don't got nothing to do, because I'm telling you, psychologically, if I say I'm a European, psychologically, if I say that's what I feel like, I got weaving my hair, bleaching my skin, acting like them, talking like them, and you try to say, but you're not. But it's the same thing. People can try to say that they're someone that they're not. Look at that woman she was a professor, and I think Bilal told me what her name was. She was a professor, and she was faking to be Asiatic until her parents came and called her out. You are who you are born to be and nothing more. Now, if you grow up and they say, well, I want to be with this sex and I want to be with that sex, that's something you're saying you want to do. And listen, I'm not here to judge you on that. That's not what I'm here to do. What I'm saying is that it doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change who you are. You're a woman, you're still a woman. If you're a man, you're still a man. And it does not change because you want it to be something that you're not. Again, we have to protect our children's rights, and the children have the right to know the truth and not this false information and false identity. I seen the chat up a little bit, so I'm going to go to the chat just for a moment to see what we have here. And so it says, I agree with you 100% on all of what you're saying. Very enlightening information. Shukran. And that's Goddess. I'm trying to see, that's God, she, Isis. God, I got that thing says God, she, Isis. All right, and then Lady Thorough, Islam, Lady Thorough. And then Jane Kennedy, I couldn't afford the lie. All right, Miss Jazz 1960, biology does not lie. That's the truth. Biology does not lie. And I'm going to tell you, I had this conversation on AI, and I'm not going to stay on this long, where I was going back and forth with AI with this. And because you know who programs AI will try to make you think that it's okay. This is all okay. This is normal. This is normal. It's not normal. And we have to get back to being normal. All right. All right. All right. So the child is under pressure. So they have screen addiction, social media addiction. They have a lot of mental health issues, especially when they start false identifying who they are by sex. Bullying. A lot of children are bullied, even if the bullying, the child's the right not to be bullied. So I know I was bullied as a child. Everyone, for some reason, people like to pick on certain children. They try to bully you, but I didn't allow people to bully me. I was a fighter. So my thing was, you want to throw down or whatever. So, I wasn't a bully. Even I know a girl I had to fight that was like probably maybe like 3 or 4 years older than I. At one time I threw a party and she tried to act up, and she came all the way to my school, from her school to my school, to fight me. So the thing is that bullying thing is real. And not only is it like physical, but on social media and these platforms, people are bullied all the time. And I don't understand the whole bullying thing, why you have to try to bully someone else, why you have to try to make someone else feel bad about themselves. But if you build your self-esteem, if you build your children's self-esteem, then bullying would be less likely, because the individuals who's trying to bully them, your child will be able to stand up for yourself and not be bullied. So we have to take care of that. Family breaks down. So family breaks down. So when that means a family breaks down, a lot of times if the mother and father is together, then they wind up not being together towards the child growing up. So parents start out together, but then they don't be together, or sometimes you start out with just a single family household, the mother and the father in two separate households, and the child is split between households and families. So we have a lot of mental health crises and things in our society, but our children have the right to grow up in an environment of security and protection. So as a parent, we have to do everything in our power to protect our children from growing up in these type of societies, and that comes together as a family gathering. We have to come together as family and gather together. All right. So I'm going to ask you this question, viewers. Would you rather your child have a high GPA or strong character? So the GPA is the grade percentage average for the child. Would you rather them have a higher GPA or a strong character? And some of you all can type that in the chat. What would you like the children have? And then we said those who have sex surgeries have coked out to the public, with the failure to rid the body of what is naturally has. A young lady had her breast removed and the body rejected the testosterone. All right, I could see that, but a lot of times women have their breast removed when they have breast cancer, right? So that's an unfortunate thing. Women have to have it, they have it removed. They don't have to have it removed because you're taking off something, taking it off, and the body's going to respond to that being taken off, right? So I can imagine a woman having her breast removed and she don't have to have it removed for surgery or cancer or anything like that, just having it removed because she doesn't want to have her breasts. And I can imagine her body reacting to that. I can imagine that. So let's see. We have Jane Kennedy, strong character. Miss Jazzy 1960, strong character. Goddess Isis, strong character. Umi Ani Il, strong character. I know that's right. And I would strong character. I'd rather have my child have a heart, because whose GPA average are we talking about? Now we're talking about the ones in our school. We already know our children is no child, no child should be failing our school. If they do, they have to repeat over and over again. But a strong character is definitely what you need to have for life to survive. You need a strong character. GPA is not going to do it. It's a strong character. All right, I want to talk about a little bit more about the family breakdown, just a little bit before I move forward. And so what can we do as a society, again, to make sure that our family values are carried out and the family structure is not broken down? So for me, I would say that like what I'm doing right now here on Real More Talk with this particular segment is we should get together while we have the Doors of Drew Ali, and we want to start the Sons of Drew Ali, these organizations to get together to teach our children the things necessary, right? Because the prophet told us that our social duty, that's what it is, to improve thy society, right? We have to teach and raise our children how to, just like with me, we have to teach them, because I would have never known how to cook if my mother didn't throw me in that kitchen and tell me she started cooking. I was in there with between my grandmothers, my mother's mother, always having to help her out with Sunday dinner. I had to go over there and help her cook and, prepare the food and things like that. With my mother, showing me, so I was able to take over the kitchen when my mother needed me to. I had to be taught those things. I had to be taught how to season food. A lot of it was experimentation. I would season the food, see how it tastes, see how it would come out, and then create it. Right now I'm hurting because my oven's not working. I'm still waiting for the people to come prepare my oven. And I had orders. I had 3 orders for 3 chocolate cakes, and I was not able to fulfill those orders. So, I told the people that I would refund their fee, but they said no. When your oven get working, we still want the chocolate cake. So, I mean, and they didn't have to do that. I'm just saying, things that we are taught. We're taught those things, and so it's important that we, as a society, teach that to our children. Stop letting the outside world influence our children. Stop letting them bring those values and attributes that they learn from the outside into your house. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that our core values as Moors is study carried on in our families. Listen, I'm so proud when I see my daughters carrying out what I taught them and my son wonderfully. I am so happy and excited. And now I can't wait to see my grandchildren. This is why I try to take good care of my health, because I like to be around and see my grandchildren have children and still pass on the same values that I passed on. That's a lovely day. Lovely. All right. All right. So I want to go over the United Nations Rights of the Child. And I want to go over the 10 principles that I have here, and I'm going to go over them and I'm going to explain them as I go over them. And I always say, if you have a pencil or a piece of paper, it is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful if you can make sure that you are taking notes if necessary. I have one individual who says, Jane Kennedy says GPA is man-made. Yes, it is. It is man-made. And we have to look at a lot of things are man-made. A lot of things are man-made. Okay. I'm going to take a sip of tea. I haven't drank any of my tea in front of you. I was drinking it before the show started. And I always have tea. This is a lovely combination that I created for myself. I love creating herbs. I'm a creator. Creation is what I do. That's why my company is called Creative Fashions. I like to create. I never want to stop creating as long as I keep my right frame of mind. Always creating. All right. I want to go over the principles of the rights of the child. I'm going to go over the 10. And these come from the United Nations Rights of the Child. And I want to start with principle 1. And I'm going to talk about each principle as I go over each one. Starting with principle 1. Every child is entitled to all rights without any distinction or discrimination or account of race, color, sex, language, religion, political, or other status. Now, that's what they say in the principle of the rights of a child. So every child, that principle has the rights. And, when we talk about rights, there's a difference between a right and a privilege. A right is something that's given to you when you're in creation, right? But we say that. But also, when we talk about when people start giving you privileges are allowing you to do something, I can take it back. A right is something that you should always have no matter what, and it can't be taken back. But are not rights, even though we say that the rights of the child, that the child should have the right to be born without discrimination? We say that. But these rights are not carried out. Because this so-called quasi-government, this fake government, we say that this government, when we're talking about this government, we know that it's not real, right? But all of the things that come from this government is the things that we talk about, international or national, right? And so when we're talking about the rights of the child in principle 1 and what the child should have a right to, the child gets teased about if they practice their own religion. They talk about you should go back to the country to which you came from, if, not realizing that we're in our own country. When they talk about the language, if you speak a different language, right, you're made fun of because you have an accent and your dialect is not the same. So when you talk about the complexion of your skin, people say that they're discriminated against for the complexion of their skin. It's about social class, because your skin is not black, it's not horrifying. There's no way to really identify the complexion of your skin, but what you look like. But it's a strong character. It's melanated individuals that we carry. And people don't want to deal with our strong character because they're really weak and we're strong. So it's our strong character sense that people do not like to deal with, right? Okay. All right, let's go to principle 2. The child shall enjoy special protection and be given opportunities and facilities to develop physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, and socially in a health and a normal manner. So that means that when a child, from the time, and we're all still children, but we're mainly talking about what happens with the child. When a child is born, and it's saying that according to principle 2, that the child should be given protection and the opportunity to develop mentally, physically. So if we're telling children that they don't have to identify with their sex and they're giving shots, are we allowing the children to grow up and find out who they are identically? Are we doing that? Because I know I talked to someone who said that they were, didn't really get a chance. They were forced into, because they wasn't sure of what they thought they felt about themselves. And they felt forced into a way of life that's not really what they wanted. And now they feel like it's too late to change back. It's never too late to capture what's yours, to go back to what yours is, but what's holding that individual back? Society, afraid of what people might say or think or whatever. And so now you're feeling trapped, that you don't have the right to make your own choice. Now, as an adult, you can do that. As a child, parents are here to help our children with their choices. And we know that their minds and their brains are not physically developed yet. Like, they're still developing. So they're very impressionable. And people are putting these things on them, impressing them with these things. And so the children aren't really having their choice, because people are pressuring them to be what you see or want them to be. So you want them to grow up in a society of homosexuality where there's no child that can choose a race or sex. And this way, our children will stop producing children. Because if you have people of the same sex together, there's no production of children. If that's what the world winds up being, there's no production of seeds, of offspring, because it was not done. It's done against the Creator. That's not how the Creator created us. Just like when you buy a tool and they'll say they have a female and a male part. Well, those are animals and tools. But you have to fit the male into the female. It has to attach and fit. It has to fit correctly to get the production that you want, to get whatever you're trying to get working or operating. It has to fit. Well, that's how life is really. In order to produce children, you have to have masculine and feminine. Too feminine or too masculine cannot create children. Cannot do. It's not designed to do that. All right. Number 3. The child is entitled from birth to a name and a nationality. And most of us know this, but we still tend to ignore it. And I was speaking about this, and I'm going to continue to speak about this over and over and over again. Is a parent, if you are still naming your children names that allude to slavery, you are violating your child's right to a name and a nationality, because you cannot find out what nation you belong to with someone else's identification. So principle 3 should really be being pushed in our more Asiatic societies. Our children should not be having names that allude to slavery or some slave master's name. We should not have that in this area of time. So as parents, especially mothers, we always want the best interest of our child. We need to fix that. And we can help you do it right here at the headquarters. But you need to get your child's appellation corrected and stop letting them hold on things that allude to slavery. And mothers, you have to correct your status too. Because you want your child to have the correct status. You want to have the correct status because, listen, they're going to follow mother. They see mother has the correct status. I have the correct status. Father has the correct status. We all have the correct status. So that's what we need to do. And we're all on the same page as the community. We should stop carrying around a European name. It has no place in our society, no place in our legacy, no place in our history. The prophet said, give everything back to Rome that belongs to them. And that includes their name. Take on your nationality and birthright. And principle 3 says you have what? A right to it. So if someone tries to stop you, you have that right to it. All right, principle 4. The child shall enjoy the benefits of Social Security, including adequate nutrition, housing, recreation, and medical services. So we know we're in a society that if you do not have insurance through a job or something like that, or your child is not on social services where they have medical treatment, whatever, your child has a right to good medical treatment. So good health care is what I say, not the medical, because we know it's a medical practice. They're just practicing. We here at the headquarters do have our own, it's called My Healthy Way of Eating. Right now, I have Taj, Shamsuddin, Brother Allen, and a few others who are underneath my care, and these are just ones that are more. I have a good amount of Asiatic clients and maybe 2 or 3 European clients that are under my health care, where I'm creating herbs for them and plants for them and food for them or whatever. And the thing is this, a lot of us don't want to use our own services. We rather go to the European and run to them for services. We don't want to use our own services or support our own. But we have every herb for every element here at the headquarters. We have every herb for every element. I created herbs for eye care, eyesight, especially it made me get really on the ball when I had 2 brothers, one seeing floaters, and then Taj's eyesight, to help them recover their eyesight. Right. So that's the things that I do. We have ones that are blood pressure problems. We're working with the blood pressure. I took some blood pressures today. The blood pressures came way down from where they were to start. Now, I'm not saying if you're on a medication for any of these things to stop the medication right away. What I am saying is that under proper health care, with changing your diet, exercising, and the herbs and things that we have here, you'll be able to wean off until eventually you need those no longer. I would never want to put anyone's health in jeopardy and say stop totally. Like, that's something I would do. I wouldn't tell you to just stop totally, because you're not going to be able to maintain it. But we know that our health is not the best. We know a lot of our brothers have large stomachs and things like that from the eating, they're eating unhealthy, a lot of flesh in their diets. That's not, they think that's the Moorish way. That's not the Moorish way. The Moorish don't. The prophet, look at the prophet founder form. He didn't look like that. Look at the reincarnated prophet. He didn't look like that. The only one they make and say that even mimicked that was Timothy Dingo, where he mimicked that, but that wasn't healthy. But his brother Richardson didn't look like that. So it's what I'm saying. It's a lot of things that we want to try to mimic, but bad health is not one of them. Okay, as the right of the child and as a parent, you have to take care of yourself so you can be around here for that child. Okay. Principle 5, the child is physically, mentally, or socially handicapped shall be given the special treatment, education, and care required by his or her particular condition. So if the child has a health condition, the child should be treated for that. And again, we have herbs and we have people that actually in our social circle that know how to work with those type of elements. So the child should be taken care of. And you don't have to have a lot of fiat to do that. But if you have insurances and you're going to medical facilities and things like that, be very careful. Read everything they give you for the child. Read all the side effects and things like that. And most of the time, by the time you get finished reading the side effects, you don't want to have the children on that stuff anyway. Principle 6. The child needs love and understanding for the full and harmonious development of their personality, ideally growing up in the care and responsibility of their parents and in an atmosphere of affection. Absolutely. Love, love, love. A lot of people use the word love, and I want to talk about this really quickly. I hear, people who are in the entertainment field, thank you, I love you, I love you. False. Love is an affection that's a connection. That you love someone you connected to, someone that you're around daily, that's part of your life, that you can feel affection for, that you can reach out and touch. I think the word love is used so loosely now. People just throw it out there. I've had people tell me that they love me, love me, love me, love me, love me. So hear that? And right now they're stabbing me in my back. So that's not love. And don't think that you trying to throw kudos out there, whatever makes the individual feel like you love them or appreciate them. That's hypocrisy. So stop throwing the word love around. But to your children, they should hear that affection, that warmth from you, that snug, that hug. They should get that from you as parents, as aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, etc. Principle 7. The child is entitled to receive education which shall be free and compulsory, at least in the elementary stages, and must be given opportunities for play and recreation. All right, and so that means the child has the right to education. And they're saying at least in the early stages. And when they're saying, and it could be free, because if you're sending your child to a public school, it would be free. But when you have an actual organization like this, like our online school is a private organization, and the way we run is from our parents paying their tuition and donations, that cannot be free. We're not put in a position to have it where we can teach children freely without charging for it. Now, someone else may say that they found a better way and they could do that, and then, more power to you. But we cannot do that here, because I have teachers to pay for the ones that we still have here, teachers to pay, and they need to be able to be paid, and because they still have a livelihood too. So I wanted to put that out there. Principle 8, the child shall in all circumstances be among the first to receive protection and relief. So we keep talking about protection, and we know that that's it. The child should be protected as much as we possibly can. Protect our children from the outside world, keeping them in as much as possible without stagnating their growth. All right, and spending more time with our children. Principle 9, the child should be protected against all forms of neglect, cruelty, and exploitation. Children should not be permitted to engage in work that prejudices their health. Prejudices their health, education, or development. And I agree with that 100%, the rights of the child. So the children should be at the learning phase where their brains are growing and taking in knowledge. But if they have to work, we have to make sure that the hours are good, that they still have time to be able to create and do that and still have time for themselves. And listen, some families, the children have to work because they're helping provide for the family. I get that. So I'm not here judging that. This is just what it says in the rights of the child. Principle 10. The child shall be protected from practices that foster discrimination and shall be brought up in a spirit of understanding, tolerance, friendship among peoples, peace, and universal brotherhood. And so, again, we're talking about the rights of the child, and they should not be bullied, especially by other adults as well. They should come up in the atmosphere of love and caring and understanding. And that takes me to the woman who had put the play on about the slaves and had the Asiatic children, of course, played the slave part. The European children played the plantation owners. And then they were hanging little baby dolls, hanging them to hang the children. So what message was she trying to sing? And listen, because of Trump in office, people feel free to do these things. So they don't care about the rights. So my question next is, which of these rights do you think is most ignored today? And you can type that in the chat. Out of those 10 rights I just went over, which of those rights, if just find 1, 2, do you believe is most ignored today? All right, let me see. I'm going to go back here. I stopped prescription blood thinners 3 years ago. Alhamdulillah. And that's Jane Kennedy, 9221. Alhamdulillah. See, Jane Kennedy, okay. I'm growing holy basil. The smell is so good and good for many things. It is holy basil. I have a whole bag of that. It's so good for everything. And Goddess Isis says peace and love. Peace and love. I'm not sure if that means she's leaving us. Peace and love, but shukran for you coming out if you had to leave early. Shukran. All right. So, which one of those rights do you think is being most ignored today? So, for me, I would say what's being ignored most today out of those rights is being child has a right to a name and a nationality. And I think it's being ignored not only from this quasi government or this government that we know is a fictitious government. I believe that the rights of the child, as far as the name and nationality, is considered, one of the problems because we know that everything in this government is de facto. We know there's a de facto government, and we know that everything is de facto, including laws and things that were made. But these laws were made to do what? Protect the child. So I think that the children are being ignored by parents as well. Okay. And so if you're being ignored by parents as well, and you're being ignored by society, that's why I think that's the one most today, because a lot of parents don't really take it seriously that their child needs to be born with a name and a nationality. All right. All right. Let me I want to take a quick sip of my tea, and you all can type in the chat. Which one do you think is being ignored today? Which one of those principles, 1 through 10? 1 through 10. Which one do you think is being ignored? I'll give us a few moments. Which one do you think is being ignored? All right. I have Jane Kennedy 9221, growth and development. Okay, growth and development. All right, shook mine for that participation. Okay. So now we're going to talk about mothers, fathers, and responsibilities. All right, single parent households, absent fathers, mothers carrying multiple responsibilities, and mentorship. Okay. And so we already went over the prior week, and so I'm just revamping some of the things of as parents what our responsibilities are. And then the rights of the child told us what our responsibilities to our children are. Is to make sure that they're protected, to make sure they're cared for in a loving environment, that they're getting a good education, food, clothing, shelter, they're getting all these things. But it's not just that, is that they're getting the rights that parents supposed to give to their children. Things that as parents we ignore. And we as parents, it's our responsibility to make sure our children are well protected, well taken care of, and also mental and emotional state, that their mental state is good. Have you ever asked your child, how are you feeling today? Have you ever just stopped to ask your child, how is your mental health today? Because that's what we do in our circle. When we do our instructors meetings, we ask before we do anything else, we do a mental health check. After we do meditation or prayer, whoever is opening the meeting decides to do, and then we do a mental health check. Check in with your child. Check in with your husband. Check in with your wife. Check in. Do a mental health check and ask your child, how is your mental health today? And if they really are not comprehending on when you say mental health, then explain to them that just like your physical body breaks down when it's not taken care of, so does your mind break down too, right? When it's not taken care of. And so I just want to know today, how is your mental health? Okay, work with that with your children. How is your mental health today? All right, try that. And when we meet again, you can share some of that of what happened, or you can just go ahead and revisit the video and type it in the chat about the mental health. All right. So children come first, okay? In every society, children should come first. All right. We should want to do hashtag children first, hashtag a parent, hashtag grandparents. Because a lot of grandparents play a significant role in the growing of their children. I know for me, I'm their grandchildren, excuse me. I know for me, I love having part of my grandchildren. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's just such joy for me, my grandchildren. I just want to thank and give my daughter much honor to giving me those grandbabies. And I know that I keep them sometime. I used to keep them like maybe 6, 7, 8 months out of the year. And then they go back home and we would share them back and forth. And listen, that was joy for me, with my grandchildren. I never, and listen, they're the ones that keep me up on my toes. My grandchildren here, they don't let me rest. They like grandmother, grandmother, grandmother. We need this, that, that, that. It makes me get up and go. When I might be having a rough day, my grandchildren will have me up and going. I might be laying in the bed, my body might be saying, no, I don't feel like it. But my mind, my grandchildren come in, grandmother, we hungry. We need this, we need that. And right away, I'm in gear. I might not jump up for anybody else, but I jump up for them grandbabies. I love my grandchildren. Lord knows I love my grandchildren. And I just miss them so much because they're an extension of me, but they have rights. The children have a right, even as a grandparent. I have to make sure that their rights are carried out. It doesn't exclude you by saying, I had my children. I had my children. I had them already. I raised my children. I don't got to raise nobody else's children. But that's an untruth. Once you become a parent, you've had children now. Those children have children. Those children have children. Until you leave this earth, you're always mothering. There's no time down for that. And your child is still learning too what you learned. So you share with your child, you share with your grandchildren. And it's an ongoing cycle. Ugh, thinking about the grandchildren, just love them so much. I get so emotional. Someone shared, oh, that was Jane Kennedy 9221. My grandchildren called to ask me how was my sleep at first. It was annoying. Now it's expected. Well, I guess that might be annoying, but now I'm glad that it's expected. And if they don't call, then you want to know what's going on. All right. Absolutely. Yeah. Share those thoughts because my grandson, my grandson, Joaquin, is the one that the other ones may be quiet for a moment, but if dinner is not right, like he's keeping the time, grandmother, what time are we going to eat dinner? What time is dinner? Can we turn and not have a routine what they have to do? They have to watch, sight words and things like that before they can eat. And they know that. And so he'd be like, can we do this sight words? And he'd be ready. And he'll peek around the corner. Or if I come out the kitchen, he'd be like, grandmother, what you doing out the kitchen? And I said, I can't come out the kitchen. No, because he's ready to eat. Just the preciousness of those children need to be protected. They need to be cared. They know they need to be loved. And we need to make sure that our society of children get that love. Because remember, I spoke about the soulless child, right? These children that we have are soulless and they don't have any love or care. And so how do we correct that? We as a society have to. The prophet said the Negro problem is our problem. And it's being solved only as it can be. And that's through the Moorish Divine and National Movement. We have to come together as a people and solve our own issues and our own problems. El Malik El Shabazz has been telling us that years and years ago. And now people are just repeating what he said because they do not want to give him credit for it. All right. But we have to take care of our children. All right. All right, so let me see where I am. I wanted to make sure I made notes and get through all my notes before. All right, so I want to talk about now the fundamental rights of a parent. And I'm gonna be closing on the fundamental rights of parents because I know I've been talking about the child. And so with that child, you taking care of that child, you as parents and grandparents have fundamental rights. You have rights also when it comes to the children. And listen, we've heard some of those rights, right? But we're going to go over them. So one of the central ideals behind the bill that was passed is called the parents have a fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children. It's called the fundamental rights of a parent. The bill states that the United States Supreme Court had already recognized the principles in such cases as Meyer versus Nebraska, 1923, and Pierce versus Society of Sisters, 1925. The legislation argues that parents have the primary responsibility to love and nurture their children, provide education, make health care decisions, teach moral and religious values, and guide the child's development. Now, you might say, well, why was this bill even proposed? The bill states that some courts and government agencies were increasingly interfering with parental decisions in situations that did not involve abuse or neglect, but rather disagreements over the parenting philosophy. So parents were not agreeing on certain things, because I know, and I'm going to come to a question that was posed to me and share that with you all on closeout. So the authors that developed this bill believe that the government should not interfere with the parental decision unless there is a compelling reason to do so. So that compelling reason would be neglect. And most of the time, neglect is not proven. A lot of times they say that neglect is, the child's being neglected because people don't believe in spanking a child, etc. We're going to go through some of that. All right, the most important thing is that we as parents need to know what our rights are too, and our children have to respect us with the utmost respect, care for us, follow what we tell them to do, and trust that we know what's in their best interest. All right, so when it comes to including education, the right to direct or provide for the child's education. When it came to health care, the right to make healthcare decisions for the child, except when a decision would place the child's life in danger or cause serious physical injuries. Discipline, the right to discipline a child, including reasonable corporal discipline within the limits of the law. Now, people call corporal discipline because you spank your child corporal. That's a whole bunch of European thoughts, because, they let their children grow up and, tell them beat. I remember one woman was talking about her child was smacking and punching her in the face. It's no way my child going to smack and punch me in my face, because if they do it as a child, they're going to do it as an adult. We just can't raise our children that way. All right, but religious instructions. The right to direct the religious education and spiritual development of the child. Now another father that was fighting, we fought for him. The mother did not want the child to learn anything about Islam. Now, you was with the man, you knew he was a Muslim, so you knew that, and when things didn't go right, then you didn't want the child to learn anything about Islam. Those type of things is what I'm talking about. So, of course, we won in the case in court where he has the right to teach his child about Islam. He has the right to do that. He has the right to teach his child about his way of life and all of that. And then that child can grow up and make an informed decision for themselves. But you can't take those rights away from the man or the mother. You can't take those away. What limits the bill did not do was they did not abuse. They did not put limits on abuse. So as far as that's concerned, they're saying that this did not protect the parent. The parents protect the parents from having abuse to their children. Child abuse, child neglect, decision that place a child's life in danger, or decision that would cause physical or mental harm to the child. The bill does make it clear that protecting the child from abuse and neglect remains a compelling primary concern. Okay. The key principle is perhaps the most important statement in this bill is government should not interfere with the parental rights unless it can demonstrate a compelling governmental interest, and should have the intervention for at least restrictive means available. In simple language, the parent should make the decision for the child unless there is a clear evidence that the child will be harmed or put in danger. Okay. All right. And so that's what this bill for the parent, it protects you as a parent. Who should have the primary authority over a child's upbringing? The parent, the school, the government, social media, or society at large? We know that the parent should be the one that has the best interest of the child. It's always the parent that has the best interest of the child in mind. So you as a parent, if you want to send your child to private school, if you want to, whatever you want to do with your child, you have rights. And a lot of you all do not know about these rights. And that's why you have to purchase this book, The Rights of the Child. I go over all these rights all over the universe of what the rights of the child is. And also about the education of your rights, the origins and pearls of modern education and mandatory schooling. There are only 10. I think this one's $20 because this one, let me see, this one was $20 because it was put to donation. We wanted the $10 was going through the donations for the children. But purchase these books. Okay. All right. I want to go with this question before we about to close out. So one of the questions that was asked me, I'm going to read the question. It says, Grand Rising Prime Minister, what if the mother is Caucasian? My son has two daughters with one is Caucasian and the other baby's grandmother is Caucasian. These are European, so she's using the term Caucasian. All right. So what I said, what I believe that what she was asking me was what rights as a grandparent or parent does the parents have if the child has a European parent and a child that's an Asiatic. So what my response was this. I said, Grand Rising, thank you for the question. All right. And I said, if you are discussing children's identity, nationality, culture, or parental rights, I said this. A child's rights do not change because one parent or grandparent is of European ancestry. Every child deserves love, protection, education, guidance, and opportunity to know their family history and heritage. Our discussion is mainly talking about our rights as melanated people, as Moors. However, it is not about excluding any child. As we know, most of us have some mixture of colonialism in our bloodline from being tainted by European occupiers. It is about understanding parental responsibility, child development, identity, and the rights of the child to be nurtured and educated. In mixed family households, children can learn about and appreciate all sides of their family. A father should teach his children about his heritage, values, and family history, just as a mother should teach them about hers. The rights of the child apply to every child, regardless of race, ethnicity, nationality, or family background. The goal is to ensure that children grow up with knowledge, support, stability, and a strong sense of who they are, so that they can appreciate their nationality and birthrights. Thank you for bringing an important point, and I hope I will see you join us this Thursday as we continue this discussion on Real Moors Talk. Moors. So, how would you have answered that question? I'm going to put that out there. How would you have answered that question? All right, so I have another. It says by Umi Anail. I miss just being able to lie in bed with my grandchildren. All of my grandmothers have transitioned, but cooking with them, just spending time was precious. Absolutely, your grandparents play a very pivotal role in your life. Mine did in mine. And we have to keep in mind that the rights of the child is always our utmost priority. And we have a lot of Moors who have children that are mixed ancestries. I mean, in this world we live in, a lot of us from colonial occupiers, raping our mothers and grandmothers is why, we do have some mixed ancestry, but it doesn't stop us from the right to be Moorish. Remember, mother is maternal. So you always want to look on the mother's side of the family. Mother is maternal. So that's the thing. But prophet said that the father plants the seed to nationality, but mother is the maternal. So we have to keep that in mind. There's a lot of people who are confused and they don't know if they can practice more science. They don't know what they should do because they have Europeans in their family and, they have a strong sense of pride. But you are Asiatic. You know, if you have Asiatic in you, you're Asiatic. I'm not talking about the one drop rule and all that. I'm talking about our bloodline is more predominant than anyone because we're the original creators of humanity. So that's why you would be Asiatic, not about somebody's one drop rule. All right. All right. Continue to support the work that we do here at Real More Talk. If you like our channel and what we're talking about, our information, just hit the subscribe button so every time we put another show on, it will definitely alert you. But I want to go to our email is realmorsetalk@yahoo.com, and you can email me at any time with questions. You can drop comments in the chat as well on what we're doing here, and whether you agree or disagree, we're here in Real Morse Talk on our Shadow Hour program. All right. So you also, if you want to support our online schooling, donate with $ online schooling MC. That's online schooling MC. If you want to donate to our humanitarian organization, you can go to $ Daughters of Drew Ali. That's $ Daughters of Drew Ali. All right. And also, if you do not have Cash App and you need a way to get in to donate, see that donate button right there? It says More Science with GSK at DurriyyahBey.com. And the books that I showed you tonight, you can purchase them from Circle7Publishing.com. All right. More. So it's really always a pleasure to come with you every time on this podcast. Now, Taj wants to come on next week, and he said he wants to talk about the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, I am so always excited to spend the evening with you all the time from 7 to 9. We know 7 is the number of what? Of perfection. And 9 is the number of what? Completion. So we start with perfection and we end with completion. We spend 2 hours with you every single Thursday on Real Morse Talk. Again, I want to bring these up one more time. Please donate, help our cause, our school. We need more students. We need more fiat. Online schooling, MC, donate through Cash App right there. Daughters of Drew Ali, our humanitarian organization, $. Our email is realmorsetalk@yahoo.com. If you don't have Cash App and you still need a way to donate at More Science with GSK at DurriyyahBey.com. Purchase our books on Circle7Publishing.com. And always make sure you take care of our humanitarian organization, because this is where we are able to help others, when we have the fiat to help them, for the things that they need. All right, Moors. Until next week, next Thursday on Real Morse Talk, I want to give a special shout out before I leave to Grand Sheik Pray the Ill mother, his wife, Sheik Grand Sheik is Betty Pray the Ill. I wanted to give them much honor. Sheik is Tiffany Johnson Bay. Tiffany, I don't know if Johnson Bay, Tiffany. Anyway, forgive me if I get it wrong. And the other Mobile sister, I could recall your name. I spent some time with them the weekend prior, and we all had a good time. And it was on Ancient Mother's Day. So I want to say Ancient Mother's Day celebration to all the women. We did a program on that. But much, much, much honor. Shout out to you all. These are Moors I do love. I do love. Those are true, honest Moors that I do love. Okay, until next week, Moors. Until next time, I want to take care of yourselves and each other. And I want to give a shout out to Be More Bites. Go to that restaurant, Moors, and support those Moors. If you're in the Baltimore area or anywhere in the Maryland area, it's worth the trip. All right, Moors. Until next week, take care of yourselves and each other. You have been on Shadow Hour, Real Moors Talk.